Hello my friends, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. In today's tutorial I am going to use a combination of colors that I've not used before but are some of my favorites. I'm using Indigo, Wild Plum, and Sunshine Yellow. For the center I'll be using Snowcap. And I have two micro brushes, one is dirty and one is clean. The PSI on my compressor is set at 40. I'll also be using POSCA pens, 99% alcohol, a black gel pen, and micron pens. Now my micron pens were upstairs, so I used these other pens that I have by two hands, and they really didn't work that well. I had to continue to keep going over the lines. They work great on paper, but not with alcohol inks. All right, so you see here I put down the indigo in the center. And now I put down 4 dots of the sunshine yellow, and I'm making sure that it's nice and dry before I add the color Wild Plum. So every time I add a color, I dry it because I don't want them to mix. I want them to remain as separate as I possibly can keep them. So because I lost a lot of the indigo, I added a drop in the center, and I'm using a dirty micro brush to move it around. Keep those micro brushes after you use them. You can always use them again to move the center when you put it down and make it a nice round circle, or control where it goes. So again, the PSI on my compressor is set at 40. And as usual, I don't have any alcohol in my little bottle, so I have to fill it. I paused the camera and did that. So here I'm putting down a large amount of alcohol, and unfortunately it got away from me and went too close to the center. So when you're applying the alcohol, put it close to the center so it kind of touches it, but keep it on more on the yellow and the plum. You just want it to touch the center a little bit, and once you put it down, let it sit for a couple of seconds so that it softens the ink, and then start blowing at your petals. And you can see that I'm using a paper towel to mop up the excess alcohol, and this is really important, and I don't think I've heard anybody talk about this. When you're dabbing up the alcohol, make sure that you're not pushing the trigger on the compressor as well, because what happens is when you put your paper towel down, the air will bounce off of that and push the ink and alcohol back towards the center. So stop pressing the trigger, mop up the alcohol, and then press the trigger again. So I mean, it's something you can do very quickly. Just make sure to lift up your hand. Don't keep it down by the edge of the paper where you're blowing the ink to. Again, the air will bounce off the paper towel or your hand and start moving back towards the center. So just something to keep in mind. So you can see I blew out my first 4 petals, and now I'm going in between those petals and I'm blowing more petals. And you can see how nice and wide they're turning out now. And I love this color combination. I love that the center is remaining dark because it makes it look kind of concaved. And then the a little bit of the blue is coming out, but mostly the plum and the yellow sunshine. And I really like the way this color combination worked out. So now I'm going over my first set of petals because I want to deepen the color a little bit. And you can see on this petal on the left-hand side there, how the ink decided to go where it wanted to go and not where I wanted it to go. So I have a little hole there, but I'm going to show you in a minute how I work around that type of issue when it occurs. Had I been more mindful, I could have blown the ink to fill in that space, but I didn't. So I'll show you in a little bit how I fix that. So you can see how beautiful and vibrant these colors are becoming now as I blow over my previous petals. And I'm using short spurts on the airbrush because I'm getting close to the ink, and what I'm trying to do is to broaden the petals. So instead of staying in the center where I started to blow out the petal, I'm moving it up and aiming it more towards the paper and not towards the tip of the petal, and that kind of broadens the petal a little bit for me. So now I've got snow cap. Make sure you shake that bottle well. It's something that I forget to do very often, and then the consistency of the ink is very watery. So if you don't shake it, that's what's going to happen, and the color that's underneath is going to absorb the snow cap, so you won't even be able to see it very well. So I'm applying my layers, and for this flower I wanted to create kind of like a fluffy soft center. I didn't want the center to take away from all the colors that came out in the petals, so I wanted to keep it simple. So I am going outside of the center and onto the petals with my little white dots, and then as I move down, I would say the top of the center, I'm concentrating more white dots in that area, and as I move down, I'm keeping them a little bit lighter. And I'm doing multiple layers and drying in between because the ink that's underneath will absorb some of the white. And I always say it makes a great foundation for your centers, but I want them to be a little bit brighter. So I'm going over some of the areas where I want it to be brighter. And some of the dots that I did that were kind of spread out beyond the center and onto the petals. And make sure to stick around until the end of the video because I always post a close-up of the flower so that you can see the detail in the colors and also in better lighting and the detail in the center. And while you're watching me create this center, I will remind you that all the products used are linked in the description box. Click on the box below the video where you see the title and it will expand, or you can click on show more or the arrow pointing down, and all the products are linked there so you can check them out for yourself or purchase them if you're interested. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It's a really nice way to show your support for my channel, and it lets YouTube know that you're enjoying my content, and it makes my videos available to other people. It doesn't cost you anything, just a little tap, and it makes a big difference to me, so I would really appreciate it. Okay, so now here we are to the fine liners that I'm going to use to attach those white dots to the center of the flower. And again, a micron pen works much better, but mine were upstairs and I was too lazy to go get them. So the ones that I'm using are by two hand, and they work, like I said, really great on paper and hot press paper. If you're doing line and wash, they work good there. They don't fade, but when you're working on alcohol ink with these markers, the ink must absorb the black, so I had to continually go over the lines, and I'm using the smallest nib that I have. So if you're using the micron pens, make sure that you use the tiniest nib because you don't want those filaments, I think that's what they're called, to be very thick. You want them to be very delicate. So now I'm attaching each of those dots, the ones that I did that were on the petals where I did them further apart. I'm connecting them to the center, and make sure that all your lines are not going in the same direction. Find a center point in your center and aim all your lines towards that center. And now I'm just going over to add a few more dots where I want it to be the whitest, and going over some of the dots that absorbed the color underneath, and they kind of faded, so I wanted to brighten those up a little bit. And in a moment you'll see what I did to fix the that edge where the petal didn't turn out exactly the way that I wanted. I do this all the time. It's the way I can save a lot of my paintings. You can always crop it, but you can also create a border, and I'll show you in just a moment how I did that. I'm just going over those lines again, which was really annoying. So make sure you use micron pens. They don't do this. All right, so I have some POSCA pens and they have a really, really broad tip. So this one, I don't recall what size it is, but it's the largest one I've ever seen. And I'm creating a broad border to cover up that one mistake in that petal. And I'm going to go around the entire painting and create this border. Another thing that I always forget to do is to shake your POSCA pens. Make sure you shake them, otherwise the ink the paint is not mixed well. It will separate in the pen, so you have to shake it in order to mix it well. Otherwise it won't be as opaque as it should be. So you can see I have covered up that little wonky petal. So now I'm going to take a smaller POSCA pen, and there are a couple of white areas, and I'm just going to fill in those white areas with the black. And then just touching up any edges. And there you go. You have your finished painting. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Again, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to give this a try. You can share it with me on our Facebook group, Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials. I created that group so my followers would have a place to post their versions of the paintings and techniques learned on this channel. I would love to see you there. We have a great group of members that are incredibly supportive and very, very talented. We also have weekly challenges. So check out the Facebook group, Vivo Vintage Designs. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.